forces demolished the residence of a Palestinian who carried out a shooting attack.
This government practice often fuels tensions, as critics say it is a form of collective punishment. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alagao Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
Magnitude 6 earthquake rattles Masbate. AFP chief and Chinese envoy convene for peace and stability over West Philippine Sea. No survivors as Black Hawk helicopter crashes onto U.S. highway. Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to end hostilities with Ukraine. And basketball legend Michael Jordan donates $10 million to Child Foundation.
A magnitude 6 earthquake rocked Masbate early Thursday morning, with more than 100 aftershocks afterwards. Celine Dorado tells us more.
At 2:10 a.m., a magnitude 6 earthquake struck Batuan, Masbate. More than 100 aftershocks have been reported starting this afternoon. The first was a magnitude 5 earthquake in the Masalang, Masbate, around 5:15 p.m. on Wednesday. In the video uploaded by a netizen, items inside the store can be seen moving. At least 200 patients were discharged from the Masbate Provincial Hospital due to the early morning shaking. A tent was placed outside the hospital while conducting an assessment of the building. Some parts of the Masbate Coliseum in Masbate City were also damaged. Some parts of the building's ceiling fell off, while part of its glass wall was broken. A few hours later, the Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office of Palanas immediately inspected several buildings with minor cracks. This includes the evacuation facility, public market, and other establishments. Schools from elementary to secondary levels were closed to allow for pre-assessments of the buildings. According to the assessment of San Fernando Masbate Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, 26 barangays were affected by the earthquake and one house was damaged. In a separate assessment, Masbate Public Information Chief June Bagalihog said several roads have been damaged, including the National Road in Batuan due to the temporary closure. The walls of the 4-story Provincial Health Office building also had cracks. According to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, the quake was felt in various parts of the Bicol region, Mimaropa, and parts of the Visayas region. Intensity 1, Lopez, Mulanay, Pulilio Island, Marinduque, Pandan, Antique, and Southern Leyte. Intensity 2, Gumaca, Quezon, Daet, Camarines Norte, Ragay, Camarines Sur, Prieto Diaz, Sorsogon, Malinaw Aklan, Hamindan, Tapaz, Capiz, Argao Cebu, Can-Avid, Eastern Samar, Abuyog, Dulag, Leyte, Northern Samar, and San Roque. Intensity 3, City of Legazpi, Tabaco Albay, Iriga City, Camarines Sur, Bago, Negros Occidental, Calubian, Ormoc City, and Isabel. Intensity 4, Bulusan, Sorsogon, and Bogo Cebu. Intensity 7, City of Masbate, Masbate. The fault line section moved once in Dimasalang, Masbate in February 2003, creating a greater chance of more earthquakes in the province. The Office of Civil Defense is continually assessing and reminding the public to be alert and to duck, cover, and hold in case of earthquakes. Celine Dorado for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The more than 80 Filipino rescuers in Turkey admit that cold temperatures and language barriers hinder their operations. One of the Filipino rescuers there, Brian Farenya, says they are in good condition despite the obstacles. Every morning at 9, they are dispatched to assist in search and rescue operations. Their biggest challenge is hypothermia, or a drop in body temperature due to the cold climate. Rescuers use life detector devices and snake eyes or vibroscopes to rummage through the rubble searching for survivors.
The remains of overseas Filipino worker Wilma Tezcan, who died in the earthquake in Turkey, have returned to the Philippines. Around 7 p.m. last night, Wilma's remains were released from the cargo area of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport and taken to her home in Lucena, Quezon for her funeral. Wilma's daughter, Nicole, returned with the remains. Wilma's husband, a Turkish national, is missing his passport and could not travel to the Philippines. At the time the earthquake hit, Wilma was with her employer in the province of Hatay, while her daughter was in Istanbul. Nicole says her mother was near the epicenter of the earthquake. She was able to talk to her employer after the earthquake, but no longer replied after one of the aftershocks. Wilma worked in Turkey for 11 years as a breadwinner for her family.
China denies flashing a military-grade laser directly at the crew of the BRP Malapascua. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs stands with the Philippine Coast Guard statement on the incident. Paulo Ramos with more details.
The China Coast Guard was reportedly harassing the BRP Malapascua of the Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, at Ayungin Shoal on February 6. In a regular press conference, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin denies that the Chinese Coast Guard's lasers were aimed directly at the Filipino crew on board the PCG vessel. The minister says no damage was done to anything or anyone on the ships of the Philippines. Wang claims that the Philippines' allegations do not reflect the truth. He says the handheld equipment was used to measure the distance and speed of the PCG ship and to signal directions to ensure navigation safety. Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Xilian, has already announced the Philippines side of the incident. Wang said China is ready to work with the Philippines to resolve maritime issues through friendly consultations and to jointly maintain peace and stability in the region. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, has upheld the PCG statement regarding the incident in Ayungin Shoal. The PCG said the military-grade laser of the China Coast Guard ship had caused temporary blindness to BRP Malapascua personnel. DFA spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza said the sheriff's office has no reason to doubt the PCG statement about the incident. The Philippine focal person reiterated to its Chinese counterpart that the PCG is conducting legitimate activities in the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. The focal person also expressed the Philippines' disappointment with the incident and called for the action to be stopped. Paulo Ramos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Armed Forces Chief General Andres Centino met with Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Xilian, amid tensions following the laser-pointing incident at Ayungin Shoal. Wang says they talked about military liaison exchanges and cooperation, as well as maintaining peace and stability in the region. The meeting was held a few days after a Chinese Coast Guard vessel targeted a military-grade laser at a Philippine Coast Guard ship. The PCG ship was conducting a resupply mission for military troops stationed at Ayungin Shoal in the West Philippine Sea.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is pushing to strengthen bird flu control to prevent a repeat of the high number of cases last year. We have Kim Liana with the story.
The government will stop the spread of highly pathogenic avian influenza in the country. This comes after a recorded case of bird flu in Santa Maria, Bulacan, which was immediately brought under control by killing 17,425 chickens. Assistant Director Arlene Vitiaco of the Department of Agriculture Bureau of Animal Industry said that under the administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., bird flu control will be tightened to prevent the high cases from repeating in February to April last year. The agency has allocated 177.728 million pesos in funding for 2023 for the government's avian influenza protection program to roll out mitigating measures before and during the outbreak of bird flu in the country. The budget is higher than in previous years, which will be used to address animal disease emergencies for earlier detection of the virus as well as for more reliable laboratory diagnostics. Vitiaco said they are encouraging poultry owners to immediately report any case of disease, as the Philippines has not been declared bird flu after the outbreak in February 2022. In addition to early reporting of the bird flu cases, control measures that the DA will strictly implement include culling the population, intensive surveillance in the 1-kilometer quarantine zone, as well as cleaning and disinfection of poultry farms. It also includes the implementation of limits to farm visitors and bird-proofing strategies. Kim Liana, for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The number of COVID-19 cases in the country has slightly increased. However, the Department of Health clarified that it has nothing to do with the entry of new Omicron subvariants in the country. Nadine Aguilar tells us more.
From 81 new cases of COVID-19 on February 14, the Department of Health recorded a slight increase to 171 as of February 15. But according to the DOH, this slight increase in cases of infection should not be associated with new variants of the virus entering the country. The main reason for the increase in the number of cases is due to the high mobility or increase in the number of people who are currently out. According to the DOH COVID-19 surveillance report, a new Omicron subvariant XBF has entered the country, which is a recombinant of BA.5 and BA.2.75 subvariants. The XBF is said to be the cause of the increase in the number of COVID-19 cases in Australia and Sweden. According to the DOH, a preliminary study in Australia has found that antiviral treatments against COVID-19 are no longer effective in patients with multiple Omicron subvariants, including XBF. However, there is no evidence that it is different from the original Omicron variant. According to the DOH, the first case of XBF in the country was a Filipino senior citizen with no travel history. The infected person previously experienced mild symptoms but has now recovered. The DOH continues to remind the public to get vaccinated and always be careful because there is still COVID-19. Nadine Aguilar, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development has already conducted 17 groundbreakings for housing projects as of February 15. The department says the housing projects are expected to create 1.7 million jobs. Most of them are technical positions such as engineers, architects, designers, and construction workers. The department adds it will partner with the Technical Education Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, to prepare for the millions of blue-collar jobs and technical vocations. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is aiming to build 6 million homes for the poor before the end of his term in 2028. When we return, New Zealand begins mopping up following Cyclone Gabrielle. Earthquake survivors face disease as a secondary crisis. And a Kilauea volcano erupts as magnitude 4.8 earthquake hits Hawaii. These and more news when we return here on Mata ng Agila International.
Uy, kuya! Ba't ka man naniniksik?
Ay, aakit sana ako ng stage.
Eh, hindi pwede yun, kuya!
Ay, hindi. Kasi ako yung singer. Nalaglag lang ako.
Uy, uy, kuya!
Kung nagsasalita lang ang one.
Tama na! Tama na! Sagad na, sagad na!
Nahanap ko yung health center. Magpapacheck up kasi ako ng mata ko.
Ako na lang check.
Malabo nga.
Hindi ka pa ba naaawa sa taong yun? Grabe na yung hirap na napagdadaanan niya ngayon. Gusto mo ba siya?
Ako po, parang bumalik na yata yung selective amnesia mo.
Ang ibig mo sabihin, meron akong selective amnesia?
Kung kailan araw ng kasal mo, saka ka magkakasakit ulit.
Di kakasal na tayo?
Hi mga ka-superfans, ito po si Bonbon Custodio mula po sa inyong Davao Occidental Tigers. Manatili po kayong nakatutok dito lang sa Pilipinas Super League. Ito ang liga ko.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. Military helicopters plucked people from rooftops in flood-stricken New Zealand Wednesday as rescue teams finally made it to the regions cut off by Cyclone Gabrielle. 5 people died and more than 100 are missing as Gabrielle raged across the country's North Island this week. The storm forced more than 10,000 residents from their homes. Homes in the hardest-hit region are surrounded by a sea of murky, debris-filled floodwater. With no place to go, people living there took refuge on their rooftops until help arrived. The disaster severed roads, collapsed houses, and cut power across a swathe of New Zealand's North Island. There are still more than 1,400 people who cannot be contacted because cell phone service has not been restored. The lights are out in more than 160 million thousand households as they wait for power to be turned back on. In some places, that could take weeks. Prime Minister Chris Hipkins says New Zealanders face a long, grueling recovery. The storm first made landfall on Sunday and drenched the already waterlogged region with rain. Gabrielle is now fading into the South Pacific.
Heavy flooding in South Africa has claimed at least 12 lives. The country has declared a national disaster after flooding hit 7 of its 9 provinces. Heavy rain has fallen in large parts of the country, and the National Weather Service expects the deluge to continue. Several people are missing after they tried to cross a swollen river. Farmers have suffered crop and livestock losses as their fields are submerged. In the country's north, the water damaged roads and bridges and washed away several cars. An NGO is working to deliver food parcels to people who have been cut off by the rain. Last year, more than 400 people died in flooding in the country's third largest city, Durban, and surrounding areas.
At least 39 people are dead after a bus carrying migrants bound for the U.S. collided with a minibus in Panama. The bus had 66 passengers on board when the accident occurred early Wednesday, about 400 kilometers west of Panama City. Most of the passengers were undocumented migrants. They had just survived a perilous jungle crossing before the collision. The number of injured is currently not known, but ambulances took several people to various hospitals and clinics. There is no word on the nationalities of the victims. Local media say the driver was turning the bus around after he had driven past his destination. This is the worst accident involving migrants in Panama in at least 10 years.
The head of the World Health Organization says more money is needed to meet the demand for aid it is supplying to the earthquake-stricken areas of Turkey and Syria. Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says demand for finances needed to help the survivors will double by the end of the week.
On Saturday, we launched an appeal for $43 million to support our response in both countries. This amount is increasing by the day, and we expect WHO's financial needs for this emergency to double by the end of this week. We urge donors to be generous.
The earthquake has claimed more than 40,000 lives and left millions homeless.
Now, survivors of the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria now face a secondary crisis: diseases. Poor sanitation and a lack of water are creating conditions ripe for the spread of infections. Rows of portable lavatories have sprung up near temporary campsites like these in Turkey. Places like these are where millions of homeless people are seeking refuge, but demand outstrips supply and raw sewage is flowing onto the streets. The poor sanitary conditions are also causing skin diseases such as scabies. Other health hazards include a lack of heating. Upper respiratory infections are becoming common, especially among children. Now, people are huddling around bonfires if they can find them. Medicine is in short supply, as are healthcare professionals. In one case, a group of volunteers has been working out of parking lots of a parking lot of a destroyed clinic to provide free treatment. Temporary pharmacies have popped up as well.
The U.S. Geological Survey said a 4.8 magnitude earthquake struck Hawaii, with shaking widely felt as far as Oahu. The epicenter was 7.5 miles southeast of Pahala and 47 miles south-southwest of Hilo. The tremor hit Hawaii's Kau Coast at a depth of about 20 miles. Authorities also announced no tsunami is expected, but some areas may have experienced shaking and aftershocks. Other sources say the earthquake did not impact volcanic activity at Kilauea or Mauna Loa. Meanwhile, the Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency asked residents to check for property damage.
In the U.S., a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter crashed on Highway 53 near Huntsville, Alabama, killing all personnel on board. Authorities report 2 people died in that crash. The helicopter belonged to the Tennessee National Guard. It was on a training flight when it crashed at mid-afternoon. The National Guard is a state-based military force that is part of the reserve of the U.S. military when activated for federal missions. It said no other service members or civilians were harmed in the accident.
A sentencing hearing for a man who went on a shooting rampage last May in Buffalo, New York, erupted into chaos before 19-year-old Peyton Gendron was ordered to spend the rest of his life in prison for killing 10 people in a supermarket. A man lunged at him while relatives were giving victim impact statements. This is the scene in the courtroom. The granddaughter of one of the victims was speaking when someone in the audience took a run at Gendron. Gendron was escorted out of the courtroom while security guards regained order. He had pleaded guilty last November to a charge of domestic terrorism motivated by hate. He had planned the attack for months, targeting Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo because of the large African-American population in the neighborhood. Gendron had traveled from his home more than 300 kilometers away. Wearing body armor and wielding an assault rifle, he shot people in the parking lot before entering the store. Hours later, police arrested him.
News sources claim Americans are outraged that the Biden administration and publications are ignoring the environmental disaster in East Palestine, Ohio. The train that crashed there caused a large fire and spilled vast clouds of toxic chemicals over the town. Authorities claimed the area was safe, but residents complained of polluted air and constant coughing. Many animals in reservoirs have also died, but evacuation orders are canceled. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine is urging Congress to take action since the situation has sparked concerns about environmental damage and health issues. Social network users are calling for the government to act and for Eastern Palestine to be renamed Kyiv so Washington could pay attention to it.
Norwegian parties backed an aid package on Thursday worth $7.4 billion for Ukraine to be spread out over 5 years. All parties in the Storting, Norway's parliament, backed the plan. The center-left government first presented it on February 6, apart from the Red Party, which is a small far-left grouping. The plan pledges nearly $1.5 billion annually in civilian and military aid between 2023 and 2027. The broad consensus means the funds will continue to flow regardless of the political makeup of the government. It may change in Norway's parliamentary elections scheduled for 2025.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has once again reiterated the reasons for the special military operation, and he blames the Ukraine and their supporters for hostilities in the conflict.
Эти боевые действия начаты были националистами на Украине и тех, кто их поддерживал в 2014 году, когда был совершен государственный переворот. С этого все началось. После этого последовали события в Крыму и на Донбассе. И вот с 2014 в нарушение всех договоренностей, в нарушение всех взятых на себя обязательств, эти регионы Донбасса были взяты практически в блокаду, по ним начали работать с помощью тяжелой техники военной, неоднократно проводили крупные военные операции. То есть вот они начали войну тогда. Вот начали войну. И она продолжалась 8 лет на истребление людей, которые там живут, и которые чувствуют себя кровно связанными с Россией, с русской культурой, с русским языком.
Russian President Vladimir Putin praises Serbia for its balanced foreign policy stance. Putin asserts Serbia is a significant and reliable partner of Russia. He says Moscow supports Belgrade's efforts to protect their country's territorial integrity and its steadfastness to the Kosovo issue. Serbia celebrates its National Day, also known as Statehood Day, on February 15. The holiday commemorates the start of the 1804 uprising against the Ottoman Empire that developed into the Serbian Revolution.
Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon announced her surprise resignation Wednesday after more than 8 eventful years. This starts the race for a new leader to deliver on her party's faltering campaign for independence. In a hastily arranged news conference, the Scottish National Party, or SNP leader, said in her head and in her heart she knew the time was right to quit. Opponents and SNP members alike praised her towering presence in UK politics over recent years, but she departs after facing mounting pressure over her tactics for independence. The 52-year-old confirmed she would remain First Minister until the SNP elects a new leader. She will also stay on as a member of the Scottish Parliament until at least the next election, due in 2026.
I have been wrestling with it. Also.
Up next, CDC says U.S. teen girls experience record high levels of sadness and violence. Thousands of angry doctors strike in Paris. And Israeli army demolishes the house of a Palestinian attacker in Hebron. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will return with more global news.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders, Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba, sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Yun o! Bato! Wow!
Tama na, may nanalo na. Uwi na. Cajun Seafood!
In the United States, the number of teenage girls experiencing severe sadness and violence has increased alarmingly in 2021. Health authorities there are calling on schools to help in the crisis. Rosel Feria reports.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, releases new data revealing that nearly 3 in 5 U.S. teen girls felt persistently sad or hopeless in 2021. This number is double that of boys. CDC says this represents a nearly 60% increase and the highest level reported over the past decade. The analysis includes 2021 data and trends from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which examines health behaviors and experiences among U.S. high school students. CDC says youth mental health has continued to worsen, with particularly stark increases in widespread reports of harmful experiences among teen girls. Some alarming details in the report include nearly 1 in 3 seriously considered attempting suicide, 1 in 5 experienced sexual violence in the past year, more than 1 in 10 had ever been forced to have sex. Findings by race and ethnicity also show high and worsening levels of persistent sadness or hopelessness across all racial and ethnic groups. Reported suicide attempts increased among Black youth and white youth. CDC underscores the profound difference school-based activities can make in the lives of teens with a relatively small infusion of support to schools. CDC says young people are experiencing a level of distress that calls on us to act with urgency and compassion. Call or text the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline if you are experiencing mental health related distress or are worried about a loved one who may need crisis support. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Rosel Feria for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
WHO Chief Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus rejects a report that the organization has given up on finding an answer to how the COVID-19 pandemic started. Ghebreyesus says researchers are still hard at work on the question.
Following up on the origins study and knowing how this pandemic started is very, very important and very crucial. And we should continue pursuing. As you know, the two reasons why we need to know the origins of this pandemic. First, it's science. And second, it's a moral issue.
An article on the Nature website this week said, faced with a lack of cooperation from China, the WHO had abandoned the search.
More than 4,500 doctors are on strike in Paris to demand the government to double their fees per consultation. Health Minister Francois Braun proposes to increase their remuneration by 1.5 euros. Sources say this would leave the doctor's salary at 25 euros per consultation. This rate would imply an increase of 7,000 euros per doctor per year. Yet the doctors lament this proposal once again rejected the request of the autonomous health professionals who demand 50 euros per consultation.
New research shows that metformin may prevent the effects of aging. Metformin is an inexpensive, decades-old pill. It helps treat diabetes and aids weight loss. Some research suggests it may also help blunt the effects of aging, preventing cancers and dementia. New studies are coming, but one researcher says older people should ask doctors about it or about taking it now.
President Gustavo Petro asks the Colombian Congress for an act of generosity to approve his reforms. This at the end of the first major mobilization of support for the government since he came to power in August. Thousands of people took to the streets in Colombia's main cities to express support for Petro's health and pension reforms. Labor, teacher, and health worker unions answered a call from the country's first ever left-wing government to support an ambitious agenda. Petro presented a controversial health reform to lawmakers that eliminates private sector management of payments. His government says this will improve primary care, expand access to treatment, raise healthcare salaries, and fight corruption. The reforms are likely to pass. Petro's left-wing supporters in Congress enjoy a majority thanks to a coalition with centrist and moderate right-wing parties.
The Israeli army has demolished the house of a Palestinian attacker in Hebron. Smoke billows at the residence of Muhammad al-Jabari. Al-Jabari is a Palestinian who carried out a shooting attack last year. He opened fire on Israeli settlers near the settlement of Kiryat Arba in the southern West Bank, killing 1 and wounding 4 in October 2022. His home is demolished by Israeli forces in Hebron and the occupied West Bank.
Sources say Tesla CEO Elon Musk gave 11.5 million shares of his stake in the electric automaker to an undisclosed charity last year. The shares were worth about $1.9 billion at the time they were donated. Forbes' real-time billionaire tracker claims Musk's net worth at the end of 2022 stood at $137 billion. This means the $1.5 or $1.9 billion represented about 1.4% of his net worth at the time of donation. Chronicle of Philanthropy says the bequest would make Musk the second largest charitable donor in 2022.
It has been 12 years since a massive earthquake triggered a tsunami and caused a nuclear catastrophe in Japan. Workers at the Fukushima Daiichi plant in northeast Japan are preparing to release treated wastewater into the sea. Operator TEPCO says the release is both safe and necessary. The site produces 100,000 liters of contaminated water daily. The water is filtered to remove most radionuclides. More than 1.32 million tons of treated water was being stored at the site as of February. That accounts for 96% of storage capacity, so TEPCO is keen to start releasing the water soon. Under a plan approved by the central government, the process is expected to begin this spring or summer. Neighboring countries, activist groups, and local residents strongly oppose the release. Local fishermen fear the release would once again make consumers wary of buying their catch. The International Atomic Energy Agency assures the release is safe, stating it meets international standards and will not cause any harm to the environment.
Sources say global investors have snapped up a record $2.1 billion worth of Chinese equities this February. Analysts strongly observe the recent figure is higher than the previous peak in February 2021. The country's benchmark CSI 300 index of its biggest companies has also risen more than 13% since the end of October. Analysts say the recent surge in foreign demand for China's stocks was driven by positive economic data published after the New Year holiday. The data helped reassure some investors who had remained edgy about China's growth outlook even after the end of its zero-COVID policy. Moreover, market expansion is encouraged by China's Stock Connect. It allows investors from Hong Kong to access the stock market in mainland China. Hence, analysts predict the Chinese Stock Exchange will likely continue its rally in 2023 as it attracts foreign investors.
Dozens of rows of furrows look empty in a vast-plowed field in Bolivia's highlands. Farmers say Bolivia's highlands should be full of potatoes for harvest this season, but frost and drought have battered the region. Farmer Cristobal Pongo, for example, says the ice has taken away his potatoes. His plants no longer sprout and have died. Local reports claim the shortage has multiplied the price of tuber by 7 times. Recent official data shows tuber now sells at almost $2 per kilogram in Bolivian markets. Coming right up, Airbnb posts first profitable year as travel rebounds. NBA icon Michael Jordan donates $10 million to nonprofit organization. And captain of Thai Cave Boys soccer team dies in Britain. Catch these stories and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
When we order from online sellers, we just expect to receive our goods in the shortest time possible. However, for those with a business mindset, they are keen to know what's the story behind the delivery of goods and if there are any opportunities to invest. That's exactly what we're in for this episode, knowing the ins and outs of a logistics or courier express service, including the franchise model of this business. We'll find out more insights from Bex Logistics Solutions, Inc.'s President Marjorie Rubio.
There are some cities, outskirts, no, hindi na nakikater talaga ng logistics. Nakita namin na this is a huge market na wala pa rin talagang nagdo-dominate.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Ako po si KZ Tendingan, ang Music Ambassador ng National Commission for the Culture and the Arts. Halina't makikinig.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. Airbnb reports its first annual profit, with revenue surging in the final 3 months of 2022 as travel bookings rebounded. The home rental platform said it made a profit of $319 million in the final quarter of last year on a revenue of nearly $2 billion. Airbnb says it finished 2022 with a net income of $1.9 billion compared with a loss of $352 million the prior year. In mid-2020, the company slashed 1/4 of its workforce, some 1,900 people, as the coronavirus pandemic crushed the travel industry. Shareholders report that the company ended last year with an all-time high of 6.6 million active listings of lodgings for rent. Late last year, Airbnb made it easier for people to offer their homes for rent on its platform.
The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, has revised global oil demand for 2023. The monthly oil market report states oil demand will increase by 2.32 million barrels per day, or BPD, by 2023. There are also some upward adjustments due to China's good performance from relaxing COVID-19 restrictions. In the first quarter of 2023, world oil demand is forecasted to rise by 1.9 million BPD year on year and will rise again in the coming months. OPEC warns, however, that the estimate may change. There are still uncertainties like global economic activity, China's COVID-19 policy, and current geopolitical developments.
There could be a new phase in Twitter's front office by the end of the year. Elon Musk, the sole owner of the online platform, told the World Government Summit Conference in Dubai he's planning on handing over the reins to someone else before the year ends.
I think I need to stabilize the organization and just make sure it's in a financially healthy place, and that the product roadmap is clearly laid out. So I don't know. I'm guessing probably towards the end of this year would be good timing to find someone else to run the company, because I think it should be in a stable position around at the end of this year.
Musk has given few clues as to what type of leader he is looking for.
The mayor of Kyiv says Russian athletes must denounce the war in order to compete at the Olympics. Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, who is also a former boxing or world boxing champion, says Russian delegates should not be allowed to participate at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games unless they publicly condemn their country's invasion of Ukraine. The mayor adds that every Russian athlete must tell their president to stop this senseless war. He made the statement when he invited the president of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, to Kyiv. The mayor says his city needs thousands of additional generators 3 days after another massive Russian attack targeted energy sites in Ukraine.
Basketball great Michael Jordan will make a record-breaking $10 million donation to the Make-A-Wish Foundation to mark his 60th birthday later this week. The Make-A-Wish Foundation aims to fulfill the wishes of children aged between 2 and 18 battling critical illnesses. Jordan's donation is the largest in the Arizona-based nonprofit's 43-year history. The 6-time NBA championship winner has had a long association with the nonprofit, first working with the organization in 1989. A statement from Make-A-Wish said the 59-year-old billionaire hoped his gesture would inspire others to donate to the foundation.
Luxury fashion house Louis Vuitton announced Tuesday the appointment of hip-hop artist Pharrell Williams as its new head of menswear. Williams fills the spot left vacant since the death of Virgil Abloh in November of 2021. The 49-year-old is an established superstar in the music world with 13 Grammys and 2 Oscar nominations and has been a fixture in the front row of fashion shows for years. His first collection for Louis Vuitton will be presented in June during Men's Fashion Week in Paris. Louis Vuitton's sales have soared since the COVID-19 pandemic. The company is now worth more than $20 billion. This made Bernard Arnault, the owner of parent company LVMH, into the world's richest person.
American actress Rachel Welch has died at the age of 82. Her manager said she passed away after facing a brief illness. Welch is best known for her role in the 1996 British adventure film 1 Million Years BC. She also played memorable characters in Fantastic Voyage and Three Musketeers. The actress was a Golden Globe Award winner, having starred in 30 films and appeared in 50 television series over 5 decades.
Duang Pech Promtep, one of the 12 boys who was rescued from a Thai cave in 2018, has died in the UK. The 17-year-old was found unconscious in his dorm in Leicestershire on Sunday. He was taken to a hospital where he died on Tuesday. Initial police reports say his death is not being treated as suspicious. Medical records showed he suffered a head injury. Duang Pech had traveled to the UK late last year to attend college. He was captain of the Thai boys football team, which was trapped deep inside a cave for over 2 weeks. His grinning face was one of the most memorable images from the rescue.
On to lighter news now. Tourists visit the Great Wall of China after COVID-19 restrictions have been relaxed. Take a look. Visitors enjoy the snow at the Huairu district, which is over 70 kilometers from Beijing. After China abandoned its zero-COVID policy, travelers can now relish the flurry of snow at the historic landmark. As one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Great Wall of China is a driver of tourism as the country bounces back from the pandemic.
Authorities have rescued a jailed Sphinx cat after local police conducted an operation in Cerezo prison. Veterinarians say the cat has an ear infection, skin lacerations, and lesions on its paws. Sources say the feline seems to have belonged to a criminal gang member. The cat bears 2 tattoos, a pirate flag, and a rectangle with the words "Made in Mexico." An adoption center is now taking care of the feline.
I want a cat with more hair. And now for your evening encouragement, here's a quote from Roy T. Bennett, an American author. Don't waste your time in anger, regrets, worries, and grudges. Life is too short to be unhappy.
Oh, that is a daily challenge that you have to beat.
And for me, if you hold on to anger, to regrets, worries, grudges, you're just punishing yourself. You're not doing harm to other people. You're not hurting them in any way. You're just hurting yourself. So let go, start anew, and move on.
Realize that no one else is carrying the burden but you.
But you. Why punish yourself? Do not, do not. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Rich Yalago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.